Hello. Folks, welcome back. Welcome back. Sorry, just got off a call. You know, conference calls and such. We doing okay here? Can everybody hear me all right? Things are cooking. We're moving. Coming to you, of course, from Cliff's Edge Substack. I am Cliff, last name Schechter. And we're going to talk about elections today, as well as implications of elections, because there was a big election yesterday in Virginia, and we won even larger than usual. And there's a couple implications to that, because, yeah, we're kicking their asses by bigger numbers than usual, and that means people are very unhappy with little Donnie. But also, as important, other implications, and those implications have the names Jeffrey and Epstein to them. Oh, I shall explain. We are live. Tina Bradford and Jim Williams is telling me I'm loud and clear, which are two things I like to be, both loud and clear. I realized because of the call I had before this, I ran down a lot of the battery on my computer, so this is going to get interesting at some point. I may have to unplug my microphone, and I don't know. We're gonna figure this whole damn thing out. I promise you. But I digress. First, obviously, Poland. It's part of NATO, you may know. And when you have a leader with a name like Donald Trump, who is a large Jabberwocky-like creature who never gets any exercise and likes to eat KFC grease and pretty much sucks at everything he ever does, from presidenting to marrying to bankrupting to whatever, you kiss Vladimir Putin's ass to the point it gets so red that he thinks he can start sending drones over Poland too. This was inevitable. My God, Poland, what they've been through, being between Russia and Germany. Bad place for a country. Montana's open, in any case. That's not a good sign. That's what I would call a bad sign. And that's, we're not saying, hey, it's World War III. But important to note the fact that if they are already making that mistake, when's the first mistake? When they bomb stuff. When's the first mistake? When their bombers just sort of lose track. Oh, crap, we hit the Sudetenland. Ring any bells, anybody? This is how they do it. They encroach slowly on your territory. Difference is that during World War II, FDR wasn't down on his hands and knees giving Hitler, that. I won't even say that here on YouTube, even though they would probably ban me. But hey, let's just say giving old Pootie a reach around in the corner. So that's what we have now. It's like when they met in Alaska that Donald Trump thought was Russia like 14 times, and I called it reverse. It was like a bizarro Yalta. It'd be like if we went to Yalta, but the difference was, with Stalin and Churchill, and if FDR had been there, like being like, yeah, Stalin, old Stali's got it right. Hey, let's just give them all of Europe. You want all of Asia too? So the situation we're in is quite seriously that Putin's testing us because we've got a weak wimp. And my theory behind all of this, we published an interesting piece earlier this week on our Substack about by our old friend Devin Ricci, who theorized that they are trying to get rid of Trump, and that is why you see so much about being leaked about him, because Putin, he's done what he can do. He's now weak and old. He clearly has heart disease. I wrote about that too. Sanjay Gupta said it when he saw what pill-popping Ronnie Jackson put out about him like 7 years ago, that within 3 to 5 years, he would likely have a heart attack if he didn't change his behavior. Flashing update, he did change his behavior. It got worse. He got 7 years older. So that was 3 to 5 years. He had a good chance of a heart attack. It's now been 7. He's older. He's fatter. He's dumber. He rage tweets more. Basically all of the behavior that 4 out of 5 doctors would tell you not to engage in if you didn't want to get sicker. And then there's the Epstein thing. And we're going to talk more about that as the show goes on, because that's a big surprise that we have for you here. When I told you that Republicans are freaking out, they're freaking out for good reason. And this has to do with elections. I'm going to get into specifically when David and Brett arrive. But key thing going on here is, would you want a sickly, like falling over even imagine Trump further in dementia. I know it's tough to imagine. Would you want that Donald Trump in like, you know, in a year from now to be the face of your party? And so what my friend Devin Ricci theorized very interestingly is because JD Vance has always been part of two groups. He is an Opus Dei lunatic like Alito and all the Supreme Court that are right now working on overturning our democracy. You know, those crazy guys whipping themselves in oh, come on, what's his name's book? The Da Vinci Code, right? They're Opus Dei freaks, and they like JD Vance because he's not the sloppy, idiot that Trump is. He's a loser and he's a right-wing nut, but they like that. Those are features, not bugs, whereas Trump is telling everybody what he's going to do out loud. JD Vance doesn't. So they like JD Vance because he's their kind of guy. And then there's the oligarchy, right? The ones like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk who think democracy is too inefficient. It's messy. We can't have great capitalism unless we have smarter, better, whiter apartheid leaders like Thiel and Sachs and Musk running things. And guess what? They pushed JD Vance too because he went out there and kissed their asses. And he's part of that group. So he's part of the Christianist right and he's part of the oligarchy right. And Trump is the only one who had the right-wing charisma to win over the lunatics and win, but they don't need him anymore. He's sickly and there's the Epstein stuff. So maybe you want to move Trump aside and you want JD Vance to be your guy. That was Devin's theory. Numerous of us have theorized about where Putin is. The Zelensky thing, we've talked about this numerous times with all the drones, embarrassed the hell out of him. He's obviously pushing the boundaries now with Poland. And Trump is kind of, in a lot of ways, getting Trump elected, disrupting everything, co-opting the Republican Party and right-wing media. Like, he's kind of done what he can do for them. JD Vance, from the moment he was running for the U.S. Senate, came out and said right away that, well, I don't understand. Why should I be on Ukraine's side? Why shouldn't I be on Russia's side? Everybody remembers that. And there was huge uproar, and then he sort of backed it off. He's always been a Putinite. So if you're coming from the Putin angle too, JD Vance also makes a lot of sense. So do you want sickly old purple-handed, like Trump, right? With the cankles that have their own cankles that cankle, the cankle sore, if you will. Do you want that as the face of your party with the Epstein thing breaking? Because it is going to come out. We're going to talk more about that. Or would you rather have, a JD Vance at the helm who could try to distance himself from Trump, and then they can all trash Trump and say, oh my God, we didn't know about Epstein and he lied to us about his health. Interesting. Just saying that. Maybe David Schuster has thoughts on that. Let's see if he does.
Cliff, my head is, first of all, nice to see you. My head is spinning at the moment. And the reason it's spinning is because just before the show, I, searching around the headlines and I saw this headline, new signs of life on Mars. And I was, I'm a sucker for this. And so of course I click on it. And it turns out that these are microbes in rocks.
They're always those little... Yes.
That are 3.5 billion years ago. So it's just like, really? Talk about clickbait. Like, here I am expecting to see like signs of, I don't know, alien or Martian footprints or whatever it is. It's like, no, little microbes that existed once upon a time. Come on, people. This is the world we live in. It's all clickbait in a lot of these places.
I know. Anyway. And it is. And like, even we all engage into a certain degree. My rule on this stuff is I won't lie in any of my headlines. What I will do, I'll try to make them sound more seductive and more interesting because we want people to watch the show. We want people to come on by. But I won't lie. I won't offer you something that you don't get. Today, what I offered is why Republicans are freaking out. And we've got another guest coming up. Though we can talk about the implications of the elections with him, Brett DeResta, who's a good friend. I don't know if you met him before, David, but he's one of the top opposition researchers out there.
Great.
On the Democratic side, and brilliant political analyst, teaches at, I think, the George Washington School of Political Management, and just a good dude. But you and I can, he's, his expertise is elections, and we can talk to him about overperformance in these elections and that kind of stuff. Here's what I was going to do. So here you go, folks. We're only 13 minutes in the show, and I'm already sharing the big secret with you. So if you haven't done the math lately, okay, discharge petition. They've got Massey, they've got Boebert, they've got MTG, and they've got that other goofball. So the Democrats, the big reason that we didn't have enough votes for this and other things is because a couple of Democrats sadly passed away and we had open seats. there's an election yesterday you may have seen in Northern Virginia, and we'll talk with Brett DeResta about the implications of the fact that Jerry Connolly, sadly, who passed away, ran there a couple times as an incumbent. It was a very Democratic seat, but he get about 66% of the vote. And the guy running for him, whose name is now not coming to me, damn it. It's like Warden Shaw or Hardin Shaw or something. I don't know. But former FBI, because, the Republicans are such a law and order party that all of the members of the military and all of the members of law enforcement who now run as Democrats. Gee, maybe something to do with being a fucking felon on the other side. I don't know. In any case, he won, and he won with like 75, 76% of the vote. He overperformed by 10%. That's a pretty fucking big deal in an time election, off year election where nobody really cares. People don't usually pay as much attention. And Democrats, you'd expect to be less likely to turn out, and you don't have an incumbent. You have somebody with less name recognition, the rest. But the big deal was it added one more vote on the Democratic side to the what do you call it?
Discharge.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So now you're one vote away from the discharge petition. And do I have, and maybe I see Brett's gotten here early, so maybe Brett will know more about the way things actually work inside Congress, because neither David nor I did. David was the great reporter and I was a campaigner. I never actually was on that side of things, so I don't know. But if my information is correct, we have a special election on September 23rd, and it is in Raul Grijalva, the late Raul Grijalva's empty seat, who is amazing, who used to win by large margins. And his daughter is running. So the name Grijalva is going to be on the ticket in a very Democratic seat. And magically, kaboom, we have the votes at that moment for the discharge petition. So the only question is, when do they get sworn in? That's what I don't know the answer to.
That's a good question. And as far as the discharge petition is concerned regarding the Epstein files, I mean, what I have sort of loved this week is there's, Donald, look, we knew from the Wall Street Journal months ago that there was, Donald Trump, he had, given this birthday thing to Jeffrey Epstein when Epstein turned 50, and there were these books and all this different stuff. The White House defense that, well, these are forged signatures of Donald Trump. Really? Because it doesn't look forged, but if it is forged, hey, Republicans, how come you're not investigating the forgeries of Donald Trump?
I know.
It would be a big deal, shouldn't it? I mean,
it should. And then you saw somebody share all those signatures, and they're all exactly the same. Right. I mean, again.
Hey, Brett.
First of all, let's get this going here. David Schuster, Emmy-winning host at MSNBC and CNN. Brett DeResta, who I'm sure I don't know. Do they give out polys for opposition research? Literally, opposition research to
sadly they do not.
He is skilled in the dark arts.
Brett go ahead. What'd you say, David?
I said, he is an expert and he's skilled in the dark arts of politics.
Right.
Well, first of all, I just want. Go ahead.
I want to give you guys the bottom line here. You both are blue. And
I was just going to say we got him bracketed.
The Democratic Party.
We got him bracketed, David. I don't know if you could see. I saw your helmet in the background. I got Michigan Stadium in my background.
So have you recovered from Saturday night yet?
No.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. That was a bad night all the way around to be a Michigan Wolverine.
It's brutal. We got the Ohio guy bracketed though. So
I was going to say, you want me to accept that I'm a big man who can accept anything? Here I am, a guy sitting in Ohio. I invited two fucking University of Michigan guys on here. I mean, that just shows you. I'm not an Ohio State fan because I didn't go there. I root for the good old university. Actually, I'm not sure I root for the University of Pennsylvania anymore, where I went after Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Clearly, their admissions policies were lacking. And what do I root for them to do? Beat Brown? It's really not a big deal in my life. But I'm happy for you guys when Michigan wins, because great school. Why should I be anti-Michigan?
Absolutely. Hey, Brad, when did you graduate from there?
93.
All right, a little bit after me, but okay. You were there in the Fab 5 years.
I was. 3 out of 4 Rose Bowls and a couple of Fab 5 years. But I wasn't invited on to talk about Michigan sports, although I'd probably love to do that for a couple of hours as well.
Well, it's funny because...
So to this question that Cliff raised, based on the Raul Grijalva special election, because he died, his daughter's likely going to win, the Democrats, you would think, then would have the numbers for the discharge petition. Do you know if it works that fast? I mean, how long does it take before a member of Congress, after winning a special election, can actually be sworn in and be part of the number count for things like a discharge petition?
So it happens when the Speaker of the House wants it to happen. From what I read, Walkinshaw actually asked Johnson to swear him in today because that happened with the 2 special elections in Florida. That Fine and I forget the other gentleman's name up in
the Republicans, and magically he'll find a reasoning that's different this time, right?
Well, that's probably it. But yes, I think as soon as they're sworn in, they're members of Congress and they can sign on, and so it should be released at some point. There are enough signatures. Once these 2 Democrats get in there and sign the petition, it should go forward.
I mean, that's it. Again, I think it would be very hard. First of all, Massey's not backing down. He's at war with Trump. And like, honestly, for all my problems with Massey, taking the infamous, Charlie Manson Christmas picture on the tree with all the assault rifles and all the crazy stuff that he's done. He has had more, you can call it courage, whatever the reasoning is, in taking on Trump while an elected official than any of the rest of them. All the other ones, it's like, Jeff Flake's 3 years out of office and then suddenly discovers he really hates Trump and isn't just going to sort of shake his head a bit, but is actually going to take him on. Whereas I give Massey, I can't stand Massey's politics, but I'll give him credit. He has just been in Trump's face out there fighting him vociferously while he's an elected member. And I don't know that we've seen that. Maybe Liz Cheney for that last year. I don't know. Otherwise, we've seen that before.
Well, and here's my other question, though, related to the discharge petition. Once you've signed it, can you take your name off of it? In other words, can they try to buy off Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert? Is there a expiration date for the discharge petition in terms of when it has to be refiled? Can they simply hold over until the 23rd, whenever that special election is, the current discharge petition?
I'm not an expert on the House. I think that is the biggest fear, though, that one of the folks who are currently on it will back off of it or ask to have their name removed. And they've been talking about a couple of those folks, but we'll see how they proceed. But they've managed to get people to back down before. And to your point, Cliff, there seems to be something in the water in Kentucky.
Yeah,
because
Rand Paul Massey
decided to go at J.D. Vance the other day, which was surprising and completely out of the blue. And it wasn't a sort of gentle ribbing. It was basically saying you're sanctioning murder and that's bad, which kudos to him. Like you, I agree with practically nothing politically with Rand Paul.
Normally, I say I like his neighbor more than him, if you get that reference. But I can't. I can't explain, or I'll probably get in trouble. I'm sure most people get it. Yeah,
we don't on the lawnmower, right? Somebody Rand Paul on the lawnmower when the neighbor came over and tackled him.
Yeah, yes. And he punched him a bit, which Rand Paul kind of has that vibe. But you're right, Brad. That makes me think even more. Man, I wrote one of the recent Substacks on this, on the vacuum and power. And I just think when you see Marjorie Taylor Greene and all of them, again, Putin is a factor in the background. There was a while there where the FBI was saying obviously under Biden before the right took it over and completely politicized it, that they were listing people that literally repeated Kremlin talking points word for word on the floor of the House. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of them. So would she have the guts to do it unless, let's say, a bigger fish were backing her and saying, okay, we've gotten our use out of Trump. J.D. Vance loves us. He's crazy. We don't know what he's going to do. He's dying. He's, whatever. Like the Epstein thing is going to come out because let's get rid of him. And that's, honestly, that I have to speculate on that because that is a question. Whether they want to go into a midterm election with a sickly falling over guy, the kind of shape you can imagine he might be in 9 months from now, considering the way he was a week ago, and also with the Epstein stuff out there. And come on, we know from Katie Johnson's lawsuit to the 28 women who've said the stuff about him to what he said that got caught by the Access Hollywood mic to E. Jean Carroll's lawsuit and being judged a rapist in a civil trial to the fact that he used to go to beauty pageants and bragged about it to peeking on the 15 and 16-year-old girls changing and on and on. We know what's going to be in that Epstein book. There's too many data points there for what an absolute perverted, disgusting fuck this guy is. That it's not going to be as bad as we expect it's going to be. Not to mention the most recent one, the Wall Street Journal shared, which is his signature and where it was on a woman's body. And of course, that what somebody else shared where he was sold a woman for $22,000 by Epstein, who had depreciated value in that little image that was shown. And that came out, by the way, from Comer's committee, the oversight committee. So I asked the question, Is Comer trying to get rid of Trump too? Like, they want this to go away. What is he doing on oversight that he's keeping the? It's like, have they read about the Streisand effect, or is there something going on that I don't know about? And Comer's trying. I don't know.
I think that there are just some true believers in the Epstein files. I mean, I think on the fever swamps on the right, they believe that ultimately this is going to out this cabal of Democrats. You don't have to go that far back to Pizzagate to realize that there are some folks who live in the fever swamps who think that as soon as this information comes out, there's going to be a group of people, mostly Democrats, who get let out in handcuffs. So I think there are those who actually believe that, and they don't believe that Donald Trump will be one of those people. The way Trump is acting, I don't think he believes that. I don't think you can look at his actions and, what was the old rap song by Shaggy? Wasn't me. Like, that's his defense now. It wasn't me. That's like his entire defense at this point. No, that's not. That piece of paper doesn't exist. Okay, it exists, but that's definitely not my signature, and it doesn't match the 10 other signatures. And I would never draw doodles. Oh, here's 20 doodles that you wrote. It's basically at this point, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? And I think it's pretty overwhelmingly who folks are going to believe.
Do you remember the old Eddie Murphy sketch where he did that thing too, where like you're a guy cheating on their girlfriend and be like, "I saw you there with her. You were walking next to her. Wasn't me. No, I saw you. Wasn't me. Okay, well, maybe it wasn't you."
Well, related to that, I mean, there was stories a few weeks ago about the 1,000 FBI agents who had been detailed to the Epstein to scrub names, and I just sort of worry that in the hands of Pam Bondi and this Justice Department, I mean, that they've shredded so much stuff. I mean, I'm shocked that a lot of this stuff exists to this day. I've got to believe that there are people at the Justice Department who are like, "We're getting rid of this before the discharge petition forces us to give up anything."
But how much of that, David, is actually saved due to the lawsuits? Like, they could get rid of some of that, but all that stuff, I mean, the most recent piece, the Wall Street Journal piece, came from the lawsuit. It was the Epstein estate that had it. So I agree with you. I would worry about some of the politicization over the FBI, but I wonder how much is actually in the hands of the Epstein estate as well.
Right. And a lot of the lawsuit stuff got released, a year ago by the state of Florida. And so when Republicans keep doing these document dumps, a lot of the times these are documents that have already been released. I think my fear is that, well, if this, check to Trump, or if his signature on this birthday card, I mean, if that's the worst of the lawsuit stuff, I mean, because you got to believe that Democrats, whoever's on the committee, they're going to put out the worst stuff, as they should. They should leak the worst stuff.
Of course they should.
But if that's it, and there's not much else that's left in the lawsuit documents because they've already been released, we've already seen the Katie Johnson deposition or all this different stuff, then Trump, unfortunately, I'm afraid, can say, this is old news. This has been out there before. There's nothing new here. I didn't do anything. And unless there's, the lawsuit documents are backed up by other documents that we haven't seen, I just, worry about whether this is going to be a big, to do about nothing, unfortunately.
I agree with everything you're saying, but my question to you is, then why is he acting like this? He could have simply said things like, there's nothing criminal. He was my friend. His story has been, I stopped talking to him in 2004. But that's not what he's doing. He's, it's a Democratic hoax. That's not my signature. I never do that stuff. All that stuff indicates something that's making him panic. I don't know what that is, but it does seem strange.
Well,
again, it could be
here's my theory on that, and then Cliff, you jump in as well.
Yeah, sure.
My theory is that Donald Trump doesn't know what is in these files, right? I mean, he knows what he did. He knows the relationship that he had with Jeffrey Epstein. He probably surmises, God, I wonder if, are there videotapes? Are there pictures? What did Jeffrey Epstein record about me? What evidence has been turned over? So Donald Trump doesn't know. He just has his own memory of his stuff and is probably freaked out and terrified that some of this stuff may exist. So that's, in some ways it's fun watching Donald Trump freak out over, what may be there, because that's sort of, to your point, that's sort of the giveaway. He's anxious. This is sort of like, he's a consciousness of guilt that Donald Trump is showing here.
Right.
We're sort of worried that, Trump, once again, like everything else, will somehow benefit in the end because, things won't sort of come together in the way that so many of us hope.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'll say Cynthia has a great point here. You don't put 1,000 FBI agents on the case if there is nothing, right? I mean, if you've got them going through it, and I think the take that Trump probably doesn't know exactly what's in there about him. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's never even seen the thing. I mean, even a book with just like a black book of names would actually take reading, and we know he doesn't believe in that. So, I mean, can you imagine? Honestly, I joke, but I'm also serious. Can you imagine this guy being careful about anything? And like if he had to take time away from Cheese Doodles and Fox and Friends, can you imagine him doing that to sit down and look through a book, even if it meant he could maybe find where he was in it? So he probably just assumes I'm in there. And I bet Pam Bondi took a look at it and was like, holy shit. And maybe that's why you get 1,000 FBI agents combing through all of this stuff to try to remove him from everywhere. So of course there's reason to worry that they'll have it, because they don't believe in the law. And in a lot of ways, it feels like, at least in some respects, sadly, I hate even saying this, but we're post rule of law in this country. I mean, it doesn't really seem to apply to them. I mean, there are actual laws. The emoluments clause exists and apparently you can take a jet for $500 million. And that's only one of about 1 billion things this guy has done, and crypto scams. I mean, there are whole laws that just don't apply anymore. And, so is it just Pam Bondi can do whatever the hell she wants? She's going to shred the documents, but who's going to hold her responsible if they catch her for shredding the documents? What's going to happen to her?
But I have to say, what you're talking about there has been sort of one of the more amazing things that's gone on, because I've been working in politics for 30 plus years now. And we always thought there were certain rules that you didn't cross. And what Trump has proved is that either those rules are gone or they never actually existed. And that's sort of amazing to me. Like the idea, I know, Cliff, you know this because you worked in the gun space, but it used to be the argument why one of the arguments we couldn't have gun control is because what happens if the government one day decided to put troops in your city? We need to be armed just in case. Now those same folks are like, hey,
bring them in.
Come in. Yeah, bring them into your city. Let let troops, take root in your city. And it's just hard to fathom the rules that we used to believe in. And in fairness, both sides believed in them. And now they're completely and utterly out the window. And so, your point about it being sort of post rule of law, TikTok, they passed a ban on TikTok. It passed the House. It was signed into law. The president has just said, nope. I've never known that to be sort of the way things work. You pass a law, it goes through. The president has just decided that TikTok is going to continue to exist. And so it does. I just couldn't imagine this 20 years ago. And that's just kind of where we are now.
Right. Think about Congress and tariffs, right? I mean, he can pull his emergency act, which is, such a utter amount of horse shit, obviously. We're an emergency. The only emergency is his fucking existence. But, okay, fine. He can do that. But how long? Right? It takes this long for Congress to weigh in. I mean, at some point, even if he did that and justified it under it's an emergency, you'd have to argue that within 3 to 6 months, Congress would then be required to give him the authority. And of course, nowhere in sight. Congress just, Mike Johnson, they've just abdicated that role. So there's a law that says Congress controls the purse and has to weigh in on tariffs, but they just don't. And Donald Trump just sort of illegally is like, all right, I'm going to throw new tariffs wherever I feel like it. That's where we are.
And where we are in terms of, throwing out institutions or throwing out constitutional rights or throwing out the rule of law. Out of all of this, Brad, and to your sort of experience as sort of an assassin, a political assassin in a sense, what do you see, and maybe that's too strong, and I mean this in a nice way, not a terrible way, but what do you see in terms of all of this that's out there that is the Democrats' best either opposition? Never mind what the Democrats are going to have to say. Here's what we're for, right? Here's how we're going to fix education. Here's how we're going to fix the economy, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of what you can hang around the necks of Republicans, what do you see as being the most valuable ammunition that Democrats have?
I just want to talk about, first of all, people always say, you know, digging up the dirt, political assassin. The thing is that we do is we come up with facts. You know, it is not my fault that you didn't pay your taxes on time. That's not me digging up dirt. That's me pointing out. And I always say this, people say, oh, I hate opposition research. I hate negative campaigning. Did you like George Santos?
I actually love both of those things, and I don't think David meant that as an insult.
I'm all about opposition research.
I think it was all about respect for you and what you can do.
I know, but I just wanted to sort of
important point, and good to clarify. And
I'd wear the black hat and just try to cultivate that bad boy image if I were you, Brett. I think it's cool. You can get branding opportunities with that shit.
I think I could get away with that better if people didn't actually see me on camera. The whole bad boy thing goes out the window once they take one good look at me.
Maybe contacts in the future. I don't know. There you go. There's Brett's.
Yeah, that's my whole bio. See, someone's doing opposition research on me as I'm on here.
You guys keep talking while I make sure my computer doesn't die because of the conference call I did before this, and I switch mics. Anybody who's lived with me and mics will know I'll fuck something up.
But David, you know, just going back a little in time, when Bill Clinton ran the first time, he had this sort of whole shtick that he did with Al Gore, where he said everything that was supposed to be up is down, and everything that's now down was supposed to be up. Democrats' best proof that he is hurting America is everything he said he was going to do, he hasn't done. I'm going to end the war in the Ukraine on day one. Not only not ended, last night they incurred into Polish airspace. You know, I'm going to end inflation. Inflation's worse. I'm going to create jobs. Jobs are worse. The economy is worse. American people understand this intrinsically. You know, 30-40% of them are going to be with him no matter what. But I think the rest of America actually does understand the things he's saying that he promised to do, he hasn't done. And I think we have to get back to that message also of the economy. Again, just going back to Clinton, it is the economy, stupid. I think we overlooked a lot of that the last election. We sort of ignored some of the concerns of people, legitimate concerns. And I think we have to point out that that's going in the wrong direction. There's a reason why he fired the BLS director. And it wasn't because the numbers were wonky. It's because the numbers were right. And he doesn't want people to know what those actual numbers are. So I think they have to stick to that writ large and then individually go after some of these folks for the stuff that they've done. Rob Bresnahan in Pennsylvania is a perfect example of someone that Democrats have really honed in on. He's using a chopper. He promised he wasn't going to make trades, and then he's making trades. You know, they've done a really good job of focusing on those specifics. But I think writ large, they have to point out that Donald Trump and the Republicans have not kept their promise.
And as you're pointing that out, you know, the jobs numbers, we're losing jobs, the economy, inflation looks like it's on the rise. We're probably headed towards a recession. The stock market's been battered, you know, tariffs, the whole thing. Does it, the other part about this is there's such a great temptation, assuming if Democrats do win, let's say the midterm elections, to go forward with some sort of impeachment for the extrajudicial stuff that Donald Trump has done or the unlawful stuff. Does it take attention away? And maybe this is looking too far ahead, but does it take attention away if Democrats do pursue an impeachment? Does it take attention away from some of those macro issues of the promises Donald Trump made about this second term that he has not kept?
I mean, I think there's got to be there will be investigations first, and then they'll go from there. I think the idea of going in with the idea that we're going to impeach him, I don't know if that helps both politically at all. And then, you know, unless the Senate somehow...
He's even normalized impeachment at this point.
Right.
like even that's normalized. How insane is that? Just think about that.
We only have 47 votes right now. You know, I think we're hoping to get to 50, 51, hoping to impeach. You need at least 60. There's just no chance.
Yeah. I tend to think we're looking more at, you know, you talk about the message, Brett. To me, I feel like the economy has to be a strong part of it. I still think the lack of, like, the loss of control people feel in their lives, which a lot of it is their work, right? Farms crashing. And is my sound okay or is it bad?
No, it's good.
No, we hear you. It's great.
Okay. Farms and ranches and, small businesses because of the tariffs and just all this stuff. To me, I think you can tie all of that together under, Donald Trump's stupid dictatorial presidency and the oligarchs around him. And I honestly do believe if you run against the billionaire class and you run against Trump as a dictator, that you can fold an economic message and a message about democracy both underneath as sub messages. And your narrative is, look at what they've done. They've destroyed our democratic traditions. They've destroyed, you have to pay 5 times as much for your groceries. They've destroyed your farm because this is what happens when you hand over control of your country to people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and, whatever. To me, I feel like the evil billionaires and the evil, asshole president planning our demise in a back room together, which often is the conspiratorial thing, but in this case, sadly happens to actually be true, I think is a message that can explain a lot of things going on out there because it does happen to be true. But that's my feeling.
One of the more amusing things is how Republicans talk about elites. There was a story about Scott Bessent, starting a fight with Pulte the other day.
David's last piece, just so we say, and everybody should read it, and I may grab it. This is one of the single best things David's ever written, and that's saying something. is on these two elitist schmucks, getting into a fight. These wimpy, wussy fuckers getting into a fight.
But what I wanted, David, that you could explain this is it's not just that they had a fight; it's where they had a fight. As they're calling Democrats elite. It's almost, there was a skit in The Simpsons where they did the Republican convention, and it was basically all these guys sitting in this great hall, having beer and singing songs. And then you read that piece, and they're fighting. So go ahead, please.
So for people who are familiar with Washington, D.C., there's the Georgetown mall, which is at M Street in Wisconsin. And there's a series of, high-end shops and whatnot. Well, at the beginning of this administration, Donald Trump Jr. decided to create this exclusive club for really high rollers. You pay $500,000 or you're a member of the Trump cabinet and you get exclusive access to this club. And so very hoity-toity secret ways to get in and all this different stuff. So there were 30 people very close to Donald Trump, 6 or 7 cabinet members, some deputy secretaries, Pulte, who's in charge of the Federal Housing Authority, Bessent, who's the Treasury Secretary. And so they're having cocktails in this very, lovely place, and they're passed hors d'oeuvres and foie gras and all this different stuff. And then Bessent apparently walks up to Pulte and accuses him of, why are you saying bad things about me? I'm paraphrasing. Why are you saying bad things about me to the boss? And Pulte's like, what are you talking about? And Bessent just goes crazy. He says, I'm going to kick your ass. Let's go outside. I'm going to kick your ass. Now, keep in mind physically, Bessent's a pretty big guy. Pulte is probably half his size. Pulte's maybe, 5'5". He's this tiny little guy with a big fat face. They're both loaded. Pulte, and as I point out in the piece, he was born into the Pulte home, industry, the construction industry. So he's, a mega millionaire just because of that. But he's totally unqualified to be in charge of federal housing. Bessent was also extremely wealthy, and there they are essentially squaring off and having to be separated by another really wealthy guy who happens to own the place and apparently a waiter who's walking by with past hors d'oeuvres. And this is the most elitist environment you could possibly imagine.
but that's what makes this amazing, is that as these guys, every time they're attacked in the press, they say, oh, these reporters, all they want to do is go to their Georgetown cocktail parties. And they literally start a place to have Georgetown cocktail parties. It is an absolute, it's every accusation is an admission. And it's not that they were mad at reporters for going to these Georgetown cocktail parties. They were mad that they were never invited to these Georgetown cocktail parties. Again,
I have written that story in a number of different iterations, but one of them is, that's one of the reasons they hate all the Hollywood elites, right? Dana Loesch pitched some hot girl show and they rejected it. What's his name? The original Breitbart went out to be an actor and comedian. Kurt Schlichter, that dickhead, went out there to be a comedian, and they all failed. And they ended up so they hate Hollywood because it rejected them because they have no talent. And so they went into right-wing media where you don't need any. And Candace Owens, too, I think, was trying to be a model. Like, it goes on and on and on. They're all failures at this. And so it's these institutions they claim to hate are institutions that have all rejected them.
And even the thing that Scott Besson hated about Pulte, about, leaking unflattering stuff to Donald Trump about Besson. Well, what happens after this fight? There are, cabinet members and deputies. Of course, they go leaking to castigate Besson as the aggressor here and as a bully. But instead of leaking to Donald Trump, they simply leak to Politico. So, Besson's going, it's hilarious.
I mean, this is so good. I may have to read a few lines from it, David.
All right.
Like that's the quality here of the let's see. What is a good one to read here?
I mean, the description of
let's start with Besant. This man who's made a career of
right.
sniffing the groins of billionaires. First George Soros, now Donald Trump, fancies himself a warrior for, quote, Main Street, despite having never stepped foot on it without a chauffeur. His economic theories are mostly jumbled cliches borrowed from CNBC panels and drunken libertarians. Brilliant.
And by the way, one of my friends said, were you deliberately trying to sort of make a reference to the fact that Besson is gay when you talked about him sniffing the groins? I was like, I'm not going to comment on that.
I didn't take it. I just was like,
it may just be a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, like, and then here we go. Like, you've got, but if Besant is a poser in pinstripes, Bill Pulte is something even worse, a zero. He is a man so thoroughly unqualified for public service that his only discernible talent is having emerged from the correct uterus. I mean,
those are my better lines.
David, that your stuff here is brilliant. And there's more I could read, but I'll tell folks, you want more of that? Just go read the piece. It's one of the best things David's ever written. And again,
I didn't even have to write it. I didn't even use a gummy for this one when I was writing it. So,
So David, my question to you, and as someone who worked in the media for years, and it's a larger question that I've had working against Republicans, is so on campaigns and what I do, we deal in facts, we deal in arguments, all this sort of stuff. How does the press, or is the press able to talk to Republicans when they're not even arguing in bad faith, they're arguing in no faith? Like, they'll say things like Georgetown cocktail parties, that they hate these elitists. And they're the same people who went to Ivy League schools and then create a Georgetown cocktail party of their own. They don't believe anything they're saying, not even in the slightest.
Right.
How in a two-party system can the press deal with it? Because they have to go and get quotes from these guys, knowing full well that whatever they're saying, they don't actually believe in the slightest.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say right now, the press is broken now. So I'd say you have to go back 10, 15 years to try to find a time when the press still try to sort of do its job. And where I say, I think Republicans had something of advantage because, yes, you're absolutely right. They would say this, it's absolute nonsense. But, there's that old sort of stereotype that, Republicans do things with a smile on their face and Democrats do things because they're angry. And that was a lot of times the case that, Republicans, the campaigns that I covered, they were an absolute hoot to be around. They were so much fun, and they would say stuff that they knew was absolute bullshit, and they were at peace with it. Whereas Democrats are like, I can't really lie to you because that would be against my morals. And there's sort of a certain uptightness that Democrats have, and Republicans were generally kind of relaxed and loose. And I think a lot of Republicans who were absolute spewing nonsense and bullshit, at least they were really good at schmoozing reporters, schmoozing the national press and TV correspondents, so that at least they had that personal relationship and were fun to sort of be around, even if what they were saying was absolute nonsense.
Yeah, we've fought this war for a while where we've tried to say here at Blue Amp and other spots, hey, you know what? Or I guess this is Cliff's Edge. I need to get my platform right. But, we're on Blue Amp too. We're on Substack. Hi, everybody. But the whole thing is, you know what? You actually can get really pissed off about the fact that these fucking thugs think that Elon Musk should get another pair of 50 more pairs of dock slippers while they're cutting Snap and they're cutting Medicaid, and they're going to kill people, which is the other thing, is we're not honest about stuff. People will die from these things that they're doing. You can do that, and then the next line, do what you're doing. And what I read, those pieces that I read from you, those lines, and what I try to do in my pieces was just to fucking mock them and make fun of them. Like, Democrats didn't learn, and I think are learning now. You don't have to be a scold and be one of these assholes from the movie PCU, you know, who like hates everything and judges everything. You can actually be somebody who cares about democracy, cares about good governments, cares about liberal politics, and actually have fun too. And I don't know why it took so long for people on our side, because I think you're right, David. They got that reputation because they were, you know, the Straight Talk Express. They could sit there with McCain and laugh away and do whatever. And, you know, and then Al Gore would be like sitting there like, now let me explain to you, I mean, how this is. And everybody'd be like, oh, fuck, it's Al Gore.
But in fairness, like, I think Al Gore was a little stiffer. You know,
so was John Kerry. I mean,
right.
We can go through
exactly.
a list.
Right. But if you look at, to your point, Cliff, I think people are stunned, at least at some of the polling now, showing that Gavin Newsom, who folks pretty much wrote off, is now doing a lot better. I mean, we're way far away from 2028, but it's because he's just decided to go full troll all the time. And
he's having fun with it. And I think that's the key.
It, right? You he's laughing about it too.
We used to say that, you know, when I would, you know, years ago, when I would sit in edit bays and I'd look at, you know, videotape and which sound bites are we going to put in our pieces. The ones where somebody's the happy warrior, where they're, you know, delivering a sizzling line with a smile and it's really like great TV. That is better than the really sharp, snappy policy soundbite that somebody else might deliver. And so, if you look at, you know, Gavin Newsom, and that's such a great example, I'm glad you brought him up. He's having fun. And Democrats see this is a guy who's enjoying himself. He's a happy warrior. He's making fun of the other side, and he's doing it with a glint in his eye and a smile on his face, as opposed to, you know, other Democrats who are mad and angry at Donald Trump. And so it works. And that's just sort of the nature of at least the broadcast medium, is that broadcasting rewards people who are having a good time. And I think that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump, obviously in 2015, 2016, rose to the top so quickly, because people saw him as having a
people like that. Even, you know, it's as I said, a right-wing form of charisma, because it doesn't work. I mean, I find him to be one of the most despicable creatures who's ever lived. But for people that are out there who are good with his racism, good with, you know, his sexism, good with every disgusting aspect of him, what a con man he is, he amused them because he'd make jokes. And a lot of these other, I mean, think about who his competitors were on that stage and since. Can Rand Paul amuse anyone? Ted Cruz tries to make jokes and it's actually painful. Yeah. Like when he quotes The Simpsons, I want to shoot myself. Actually, I'm not advocating that to anybody. So, you know, let's wait. Josh Hawley, again, looks like he was born in khakis. He's like this wimpy, running away guy. Elon Musk literally can't talk to non-robots. All right. Like JD Vance cannot order donuts without looking like an asshole. I mean, look at all these people, and Trump made them laugh and whatever. And think about the people on our side, the ones who were really good. And you can balance both and have great policies, but also, and be a policy wonk, but also be like charming and funny. Yeah. You know, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama both showed you can marry those two qualities and have them together. And so have others who haven't made it to the presidency. On the Democratic side, I would say someone like Eric Swalwell, who gets righteously angry and rips the crap out of Trump sometimes because it's so absurd. And Jim Jordan and Comer, I can't even imagine serving on committees with those idiots. But other times is just trolling them and making fun of them. You can do both. And I think that's what Gavin Newsom's discovered. If you just do one of them, I was reading something, you guys maybe can, you know, talk about this, but most people, I don't even think, and I can't even pronounce her name, Grisham, the governor of New Mexico, because what's her?
Michelle Lujan Grisham.
I did a Lujan part. I wasn't trying to pronounce Michelle Lujan Grisham. She said one of the most amazing terms, I think, of a Democrat. Like, she's passed everything. They have like family and medical leave in Mexico. They've got like, she's expanded on the healthcare. So like everybody has healthcare. This is one of the poorest states in the union. And if you read her list of accomplishments, it's actually in a state that leans Democratic, you know, but isn't certainly New York or California. It's amazing. But yet most people still haven't heard of her because she's not doing the other side of that equation. And I may wish that we're in a world where all she did, that were good enough. But the world we live in is a world where, the people that showed up for Donald Trump were people like Hulk Hogan and got screen time. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to turn into absolute complete morons like them, but we have to be willing to play that game where we mock them and make fun of them and rip them. It communicates strength and confidence and all sorts of other things to people. If you look at any market research, we can balance both, and we have to. That's my answer.
So I guess my question to you, though, and both of you, is who do you think fits that bill? Because we've been alive long enough that we've seen 4 truly unique presidential folks who have really transcended that. And I think you go Reagan and Trump on their side, Clinton and Obama on the Democratic side. George Bush, I don't think actually fits that bill. But like, who's the person who you would say,
and all the money and all the endorsements and stuff, and still found a way to barely pull off an election that he lost. And as Cynthia said somewhere before, he did not win Florida, and if they allowed Florida to be actually counted and hadn't shut it down in the first of so many Supreme Court decisions that have gone against the will of the people, I think that would have gone differently. But go ahead.
But who do you think on our side? People talk. There was a Politico article about Dems and authenticity, and it just drives me nuts because I know plenty of people who are their authentic selves. That just doesn't mean they're automatically going to be popular. We were just talking about like Al Gore. I don't think he was trying. He was. That's who he was. So who on our side of the aisle? Which governor, congressman, mayor, celebrity? Who do you think can be that person who is the joyful warrior?
Want to take it, David, or you want me?
Well, as you're talking about that, and you mentioned Al Gore, the person that I sort of think of who I feel like has all of the political skills and knowledge in the world, but lacks something in the charisma, the engagement, is Pete Buttigieg. I mean, he is off the charts talented and speaks languages and plays the piano, and he's brilliant. But there's something about him and his inability to sort of crack a self-deprecating joke or joke about other people that's just he's a little bit of a technocrat. So I would say he's got, on paper, you read his stuff, it's like, this guy's brilliant. And then in person, there's something, and on camera, there's something that's not quite right. I'd like to think that maybe Shapiro in Pennsylvania, he has showed some moments both of leadership and what's happened in his state, and also he has been able to sort of crack some jokes, and it seems like he's fairly charismatic. I wonder if somebody who's Jewish is still, really, if that's still a possibility right now. Newsom, I've heard such great things about him from people in California who have worked with him, who say he is such a great person to work with, that he knows these issues, he's dedicated, he's committed, he's showing, as we've talked about, the sort of the Q factor with the charisma and the jokes. So I would guess maybe, but I don't know. I mean, is there anybody? I keep thinking, like, if a Jon Stewart suddenly entered politics, he would win a Senate race in a heartbeat. And I sort of wonder if he would be like to the United States what Zelensky has been to Ukraine, who was a former comedian. I mean, there's something there.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think with a few of these folks, obviously, they know how to perform in front of a camera. And if they're passionate, about issues, again, like, I don't disqualify anybody. I'd rather have somebody with some experience for things, but I'll listen to anybody. But I think our biggest problem, and, I wrote a part 1 of a 4-part series. I'm going to get to part 2, but these are longer pieces where I have to do more stuff on them. And it was telling Democrats how to be authentic. And I wrote part 1 was very easy. It was close to home, where I said, be Sherrod Brown. He outperformed Kamala Harris by 8 points. Had he been running in even other states that Democrats lost, Georgia, Arizona, whatever, he would have won. It's just that we lost by so much here that he still lost by 3 points, even outperforming Kamala Harris. The dude screams authenticity, screams like, I'm a working class. He wears the canary in the coal mine pin that somebody gave him. His hair is sort of always a little bit out of place, has that gruff voice, massive amount of charisma and whatever. Again, the problem is the state he's from. Even he wins the Senate race, and I think he will, unless they send in the National Guard, and that's a whole different thing. But I think he will, because he's so outperformed. Now you have to mention an unpopular Trump, even here, not on the ballot next year. I think and you don't, I think he wins. But another one who I think had that kind of all shucks, like excellent charisma. Again, the problem is the state he was from is John Tester, but he's from Montana, and that's a problem. So I mean, I think some of these talents come from places where it's just very hard for Democrats. I'll name one who I've seen, if she's willing to drop and do the jokes or whatever. I think Gretchen Whitmer has a ton of charisma. To go back to a state you both know well, not only has she governed in a brilliant way, she's hilarious when she wants to be. She came out and started doing some of that stuff Newsom was doing and then sort of stopped. And maybe she's busy governing, doing other things, whatever. But she did a couple things mocking Trump that were out. She put out videos that were outstanding. And so I do think she could be the answer. I think there's probably others I'm not thinking of. And again, there are some members of Congress. It's very hard to go from being a member of Congress to winning. But, Jasmine Crockett's incredible. Eric Swalwell's incredible. They both have great senses of humor besides kicking butt. Obviously, winning as a Black woman in this country is a challenging thing to begin with. Let's just throw it honestly on the table. I mean, it is. It shouldn't be, but it is.
What about someone like Mark Cuban?
He does have a sense of humor. It's hard to run a campaign against billionaires if you're Mark Cuban, but, maybe he runs a campaign against corrupt billionaires. I think that's a possibility.
Well, Brad, who else? Who would be? You answer the question. Who would be on your list?
It's really hard to say. The thing about running a campaign, especially a national campaign, is that people are forged in that fire. Mm-hmm. There is nothing like it going from building something like that from scratch. I mean, you're talking about several hundred million to billions of dollars that you're putting together on the fly and building the airplane while you're required to fly it. It's hard to say who has that ability until you see it. But, you think about Barack Obama. He announced himself with that speech at the previous convention.
Yep.
The question I have is, we just had a convention. Other than, I think the name I heard the most coming out of that convention that people were enamored with was Wes Moore. Mm-hmm.
I've heard
he
some really
just
good
took
things.
himself out of the running 2 days ago.
Oh,
but his name was the one name I heard that people who were at the convention said he really electrified everybody. But I saw Wes Moore. I don't know if you guys saw the video where he went to football practice and was in pads and looked completely, like he belonged. I mean, he's built. He's a former military man. He's a governor of the state. So he was someone I would keep an eye on, except he immediately he said last week that he had no interest in running for president. Yeah. So, but
that is
that's what I'm looking for.
You say it in that strong a way, it doesn't say you can't back off from that. But I saw somebody else say, we'll throw one more out. Is that true? Lefty Gramps, Charlie Kirk was just shot in Utah.
I have no idea.
It's on. My wife came to tell me it's on NBC News.
Oh God!
Oh no! Again, it has nothing to do with love for Charlie Kirk, but no one should. Yes, shots fired at Charlie Kirk event. No one should ever take violence into their own hands, folks. Self-defense is one thing, but as much as we joke about stuff here, whatever my feelings about Charlie Kirk, never. The extent of Kirk's injuries are not immediately clear. This is a developing story. Jesus Christ.
So he was shot in the neck during a Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah on Wednesday afternoon.
That's awful. As you said.
I'm looking at video now.
No, I don't have to like the guy to say this is 100% horrible and wrong. No.
All right, so he was in a okay, so I'm looking at video. He was it was in an outdoor tent. It looked like outside a bunch of buildings. There was a white tent above him. It was a crowd at least of 4,000 or 5,000 people. Shots fired. Everyone, this little clip, the people sort of run away. You see Charlie Kirk go like this, and people screaming, "Oh my God!" So
that's awful.
It is. I hate the guy, and I hope he's okay. I mean, again, I'm never going to be dishonest about my feelings about somebody, but I hope he's okay. No one should be shot. That is not the way we handle things. We're a democracy, ballots, not bullets, or we become them. Whatever. That's horrible. Now I don't know how to continue this conversation because that changes things a bit. Anybody else want to go? Anybody else got anything to say?
I just
No.
look. There's my fear all along, and I felt it most with these sort of ICE raids, was that there was going to come a point where ICE or the military would have some sort of confrontation, and people would pull out their weapons and say, "You don't have a warrant, here you go," and that there would be an exchange of gunfire, and troops would exchange gunfire with protesters. And that the violence and the bloodshed would be all that the Trump administration needs to go in and declare martial law and say, okay, we're in the streets now and, we're taking away your rights. And my fear, of course, and this is why we've all been sort of begging people who are protesting the Trump administration, do it peacefully.
Yes.
Mock them, troll them, laugh at them, scream at them.
Civil disobedience worked. It worked for civil rights. It will work here.
And likewise, like for example, there's a lot of second guessing. Donald Trump went out for dinner last night, and there were Code Pink protesters who happened to be in that restaurant, the seafood Joe's Seafood House, and they saw Donald Trump sit down, and so they got up and started screaming at him. It wasn't a Secret Service lapse per se, but thank God that they didn't have weapons and anything. They were just sort of yelling. But I fear that it's inevitable that, with the number of weapons, there are more weapons. And Cliff, this, like inside and out, there are more weapons than there are people in the United States. With the number of weapons, the amount of tension, the amount of fear that's out there, the amount of misinformation, and the total lack now of mental health resources to try to catch people and help people who are prone to violence, that it's inevitable that there are going to be mass shootings and gun violence and political violence. And so then the question becomes, how do we as a society react to it?
Right.
And we'll see that in real time over the next few hours, unfortunately.
You got the whole thing in there, David, which is, again, this is sadly, and I am pleasantly surprised that this has not happened a lot more. Just because when you create an atmosphere, look, this is science. This is simple science, and I don't care what Republicans say. You're politicizing stuff. Right after a terrorist attack, they're talking about who we should be bombing, but you're not supposed to talk about it after guns. Here's the deal: you refuse to have background checks. You let people get assault rifles that are military weapons. You refuse to pass red flag laws to take guns out of the hands of people that have been declared mentally ill, and dangerously mentally ill. This is not to stigmatize everybody who's mentally ill. You do these things, and then you cut resources for people that are dangerously mentally ill. So, and you have guns. Again, if I go to the same place and try to buy cold medicine a few times, they'll be like literally investigating me because they think I want to start a meth lab. But I can go to a gun show or online, no records, get as many guns and bullets as I want. The Republicans, they've created this situation in our country. This is easily predictable. That if you cut mental health services, if you rile people up and divide them with disinformation, and then you provide weaponry, some of them are going to behave this way. And you're going to get Gabby Giffords, which we got, and you're going to get Melissa Hortman up in Minnesota only a few months ago, which we got. And now you're going to get this with Charlie Kirk. It's going to happen. This is the reason why they've been so utterly irresponsible in their rhetoric. The platforms have been so utterly irresponsible in allowing this disinformation that Republicans, the NRA, and a few Democrats here and there, but really most of the Republican Party has been so irresponsible in not passing the gun laws that every other fucking country has that is a high-income democracy. I went through one of those after that other Minnesota shooting and started just listing them, and it goes on forever.
Yep.
We've created this unique situation that nobody else in an ostensibly democratic country has to deal with. So
I got to drop because I got to go do a kid pickup at the bus stop. Brett, great to be on with you. Keep up the good fight. Go blue.
Go blue.
Season will get better. Cliff, thank you as always. Appreciate it, my
Thanks
friend.
for being here, David.
It was a pleasure to be with both of you. Thank you very much.
Take care. I think we'll end the whole thing, David, as I think David's clocking out right now. You still here, Brett? I mean, I don't think there's much else to say. We've given our live sort of reaction to this. as well as everything else we had to talk about today. We'll have to see. We'll see where things go. But again, I'm not going to let Republicans off the hook because one of theirs is sadly the victim here. They've created this atmosphere with division, with their gun policies and with their mental health policies. And we all have to live this fear every day now. And we shouldn't, but we do, and maybe this will make them rethink it. I don't know.
Well, I hope he's okay. And I hope who's ever responsible is brought to justice.
Same exact thing. This
is a tragedy.
It's tragedy. This is not how you handle things in a country, in a democracy. Never. So I hope he's okay. I hope whoever's responsible is brought to justice, and I hope we can find ways to prevent exactly this in the future, because this is not, once you start solving things in this manner, folks, it's a short road to being hungry in Russia and the places we don't want to be. So I hope he's okay. Whatever my feelings about him, I hope he's okay, and I hope they catch the perpetrator. Brett, thank you for being here today and giving us your political analysis. Everybody else, folks, I'm not going to kind of do my usual ending here because I think talking about super chats and stuff like that feels kind of cheap and wrong right now. So I'll just thank you for being here today. Thank you for dealing with another challenging microphone. But I think that we made the switch over easily. That was more the battery on my computer. And, we'll look forward to the next one next week. Tomorrow, Thursday, we've got Stephanie Miller on the Substack machine. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern, but 2 to 3. David and I will be there. Amped Up with Cliff Schechter. Please be there. blueamp.co. And we'll be doing another one of these. Otherwise, until the next time, as the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I bid you a fond farewell.